Hello, everybody. I'm honored to be here with Dr. Stephen Murphy-Shigematsu, who is American Japanese psychologist at Stanford University in the Department of Psychiatry and Behavioral Sciences. He teaches and researches human development through mindfulness, ancient wisdom, science, compassion, and responsibility. He is a speaker, a workshop leader, and an author. He received a doctorate in clinical and community psychology from Harvard University and was a professor at the University of Tokyo. His mission is integrating indigenous Asian spiritual wisdom with the art and scientific practice of psychology for healing and social transformation. He has been honored as a Fulbright Scholar, a Fellow of the American Psychological Association, distinguished Stanford faculty, and keynote speaker at international conferences. He finds meaning and purpose in promoting education and research on heartfulness, human development through mindfulness, Asian wisdom, science, compassion, and service. He seeks to serve as an elder, a sensei, who offers their own teachings, own learnings to illuminate the way for others. So I'm very honored that you're here, Stephen. I really appreciate you agreeing to do this interview.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
So my first question for you, what factors in your life led you to living a life of developing heartfulness, compassion, wisdom, and the wish to help others, or the activities to help others?
I think I think it's just partly my nature, that temperament, the way I was born. And I think it was then some of the factors that came up were most formative, I think, were that I grew up in a place that was quite, in which I was seen as different. My father was seen as different. My mother was seen as different, and that my mother was an immigrant from Japan who had married my father, who was a second-generation Irish American, and he was seen as different because he was somewhat socially dysfunctional, alcoholic, and I think that sense of difference was of something that made me somewhat self-reflective. And I think another major factor was that the Irish relatives, when we came from Japan, they insisted that all the children be Catholic. So I was raised in the Catholic Church, going to a Catholic school. And I think that was very influential in the sense that it was a very intense education about morals and virtues. And I think those are, and then the other factor was I was identified as different by other people, as somebody who, because of my Japanese side, that was something that was different from others. And I think led to experiences that forced me to reflect a lot about who I was, and I think to then feel some sense that my life would be best seen as one in which I had a destiny to do something that only I could do, or that was meant for me to do. And so I think a lot of these kind of early factors led me to be self-reflective, contemplative, and to that led, on not a very straight path, but a very wandering path, eventually to a life that was focused on these kinds of ways of being, ways of living that I could then integrate into my work as well.
So, as your life progressed, of all the different directions that must have been available to you, what would you say the most compelling direction has been for you?
Um, I think I think because it was something that was very interesting to other people, that my Japanese heritage became something that was very, um, I guess, influential for me to see a direction in life in which, when I felt very lost in my 20s about what I should do with my life, or whether I wanted to do anything with my life at all, I found that that was a way that appeared to me as compelling, a sense of being called, that I would find something of, in terms of that sense of destiny, if if I returned to Japan, which was the place I was born and that I had felt somewhat alienated from and distanced from. Um, and so I think for me, because of some those early reasons of being, um, that that was made uh, into something of importance by others, that also became important to me. And then later, in that time in which I felt like I needed to find some connection to, uh, I guess, to something greater than just my own individual existence, it appeared to me that this was the way that I could do that. And so that became a formative journey in my 20s, in which I did return to Japan. I lived with my grandparents, and it led to um, almost 20 years of living there, and something that was a compelling direction of how to see your own personal story as a universal story. And that if you could, the sense that if you can self-reflect enough to, that you could understand not just your own individual, uh, in your own individual self, but that you could find a key to understanding what, how that connected to others as well.
So I'm hearing not only an integration of your different parts of your experience, but also kind of a coming home in the Japanese culture and a sense of universality. And in that combination, what eventually led you to forming your life goals? What life goals most struck you?
I feel like I was born to be a doctor, is the kind of the story I have constructed of my life now. And that, so that I didn't become a doctor, but I was born to be one. And that given the certain nature, and then given circumstances in my life that led me to be reflective, and also to see myself as having certain types of abilities that could be then um, useful in terms of perhaps aiding other people in finding some kind of comfort or direction in their own journeys. And so I think that that was that sense of, I had a destiny to fulfill a certain type of role. Um, and I think others kind of recognized that too. And so I was constantly supported in that uh, vision that my life was meant to be one of a helper or a healer or a ministry. It wasn't viewed in religious sense so much, but more in a doctor sense of being somebody who was there to help others. Um, and I feel like I got lost that somewhat in my, as I became disillusioned with the kind of medicine that I saw practiced here in the US. And then, but I feel like I regained that when I went back to Japan, and I started first through studying the medicine that came to Japan through China, which we know here as acupuncture and shiatsu and herbal medicines. And through that, that led me back to the ways, I guess, the integration of medicines and integration of healing systems. And so that brought me back to the US. And then I feel like that's been my purpose in a sense, and direction, is to see the value in different systems, and to find ways of integrating those to bring the greatest type of helping that I can bring to situations in which I am teaching or counseling others.
Wonderful weaving together of a basic sense of morality and then seeing the bigger picture and integrating the different parts of yourself, and then finding what you were good at in a way,
Yeah.
and also seeing where other like-minded people were getting it, maybe not in the best way, in terms of the allopathic approach, but finding other possible ways to intervene. And so that's how it sounds, how you put together your compassionate goals in a way for your life. Who would you say had the biggest impact on you along the way? What influences really molded you as you found your course?
I think that was probably my grandmother, my Japanese grandmother. And that was, so that's something that I'm reflecting on a lot now and writing about it, is that what happened in that particular year in which I did return to Japan and lived mostly with my grandmother, because my grandfather, lived in different places. And, but it was that relationship, I think, which was very influential for me to enable me to find my own path, and that I think of it as a sense of, I guess, the kind of unconditional acceptance that all of us are seeking. Usually can only find it from a dog if we're lucky, but that I think my grandmother offered me that, both seeing me very clearly, but also giving me the message that I love you just the way you are, and that I believe in you. I trust that you will find your way, and then offering the kinds of wisdom that came from somebody who, in her late 70s at the time, who had survived several near-death type of experiences in the war, with surgeries, with illnesses, and was able to offer me both an acceptance and a wisdom that within just that 1 year that we lived together, led me to what I felt was a major transformation in my life. And that was, and then after that, I was able to be with her for more than 30 years. She lived to 111. And so it was, although even in her 70s, she was already talking about death all the time, like, I'm not going to be around too much longer. And turned out she was around for more than 30 years. And I was her only grandson and her only grandchild who spoke Japanese. And so I was able to be fortunate to spend a lot of time with her, and to see her go through many of the, I think, in the same way that I felt I was going through some kinds of transformation, that she herself was also going through a lot, even as she aged throughout her into the hundreds. Even I could still see changes in her, but that relationship, I think, is one that has really was very helpful for me, and still is.
How wonderful to have somebody with such wisdom who was relating to you with such unconditional positive regard and love. What a what a healing source that is. Um, so so as you internalized all this and you forged your direction, what would you say some of the challenges have been and how did you overcome them along the way?
Um, I think I thought of my journey as a search for authenticity, or in the sense of trying to find my true self, in the sense that of believing that there is a certain someone or something that we're born with the possibility to become, if and then the circumstances along the way pay a big play a big role in whether we do that or not. And um, I think the challenges have been many, and I don't think I've overcome any of them, but they just keep coming back, and and maybe that's one of the things I'm finding most about being of aging, and that um, the realization I had my last birthday, I felt like I saw two things more clearly than I had before. And one was that I'm astounded at what a half-assed character I've been my whole life. And I know at times I like to feel like I've been a pretty good person, or that I've done something of value, and I know that's true, but I also am uh, I think more able and willing to look at the ways in which I have not measured up, or I've not been what I wanted to be, or what I hoped I could have been, or um, and have fallen short in so many ways that I would, wish that I could have done better. Um, and then the other thing I realized too was that the how much I have been loved, and that people didn't care that I was a half-assed character. They accepted it, and they thought, oh, that's who you are, and that's you're just doing your best, just like everybody else, and you have goodness, and we appreciate that, and we are happy to have you as part of our lives. And I think it was those two insights that made me feel like the desire to keep challenging myself, and also to a kind of liberation too, to just feel free of this need to constantly maybe judge myself, and to say I've got to be better, I've got to do better, maybe I need to meditate more, pray more, do more things that would lead to enlightenment. And kind of those two insights, they'll help me to feel like, oh, I can just let go of that too, and just be who you are. You're just a imperfect human being, and you always will be, and just keep doing your best. And I guess that's the challenge for me has been, I do have and I think it may come a lot from the early um, church experiences, or the image of Jesus that was presented to me as a child, of um, a godlike figure that had boundless love for everyone. Um, and I think that there is something about that has still makes me want to be that, to strive for that, um, to live that. And then the challenge, of course, is that I never can, and I never do, and to I guess to accept that this is part of the human condition, that we might aspire to be godlike, but that we will never be godlike, and that is something we have to live with, and just continue to do the best that we can with. And I think that's I see as my ongoing challenge in life.
It's a beautiful challenge. It reminds me in the Buddhist tradition, there's the mountain climbing analogy. With one part of your mind, you're on the top of the mountain, you want to get there. But the other part of your mind has to be focused on where you're putting your foot so that
Yeah.
you don't fall off the mountain. But I have the same kind of thing where I'm striving for, to be as good as I can be, but you know, more and more painfully aware of all my bag of flaws. And it's kind of there's self-acceptance and then self-compassion.
Mm.
And those are really wonderful allies. Are there other like strategies that help you come back to your authentic way of being and help you be at home with yourself while still moving forward?
Yeah.
And
I
would
think
you share some with us?
okay. Um, I think the other challenge that I had was I had not grown up to be really to desire status and safety and security, and yet I found myself in that as I went along that path of finding the way for me to be a doctor that I wanted to be. That it led me to become to go to Harvard. And then that led me to go to the University of Tokyo, which in Japan is considered the top university. And then that led me to Stanford. And um, I think that has also become a challenge for me, is to be part of that world and not to be totally corrupted by that world or changed by that world that offers so much glitter and gold. Um, and it's based in a whole sense that, we in this world who are getting all this privilege and elite treatment is then have the desire to perpetuate and justify that whole system. Um, and that has been a big challenge for me too, because it's my father never went to college. He was a manual laborer, and I know that part of life as well. And um, so it's been a challenge to remain part of a system that I don't believe in deserves the kinds of privilege that it gets, and yet to not be too corrupted by it, and then also to use it to the best I can. So, for example, I can publish a lot of books in Japan using the Stanford name because it's a brand, and that it's like instant respect and recognition. And so I know I can use it, but I also I know it from the inside, and I know that there is nothing about these institutions that are follow the kinds of morals and ethics that I believe in. And yet I still choose to work there. I've done work for the US Marines and Navy. And so I've always, or many times I've chosen to work for places that I don't share all of their values and the ways that they work. That's coming to a head now in terms of the universities that support corporations that are involved with the kind of supplying weapons to governments that are then committing inflicting incredible harm on other people. And so that's also a big challenge, I think, for me, is how do you participate in the world and not what's the word, accept responsibility and as being part of the system, and then to do what you can within that role to rather than getting outside saying I'm not part of this, I'm not American, it's not my military that's doing that, not my government. And so that kind of ongoing dilemma, I think, is always something that I wrestle with as well.
I got into that this week because we had a hornets make their home right outside our front door and the shutters. I realized it was their home, right? I don't like to kill anything.
Yeah.
And so I was out there with peppermint water, trying to make them so they didn't like the smell. And it was
Yeah.
like being in a battle. But it occurred to me as I was doing this, they had every much as a right to be there as I have a right to be here, but that we can't get free of it being in a system. You know,
Yeah.
we're interdependent beings. And so, as you
Yeah.
say, it's kind of a skill to be able to be in the world while still trying to carve a pathway that's compassionate and helpful instead of destructive. And so it sounds like very much that you're trying to do that. Um, any kind of words of wisdom for people who are on a similar path on how to persevere and keep going forward?
Yeah. I have a reaction to being asked to provide words of wisdom. So when I realized I wasn't young anymore, I thought, well, if I can't be young and cool, maybe I can be old and wise. So I can be a wise elder. And then I thought, I don't know if this doesn't seem to be working well either. Um, but I have found that if I can simply share what I feel like I'm still learning, that is enables me to say things that I find otherwise difficult to say. And that if I believe that there's some value just in sharing our own stories about um, how we're experiencing life and maybe how we're learning something from life. Um, and I find that that's often, I do spend a lot of time with younger people, and that's part of being at a university, but I also work with high school students, um, and I find that sense of wisdom going in both directions, something that's valuable, is to, rather than to think that I'm the one that always has the wisdom, to impart to those younger people who, are need to hear my wisdom, that I get a lot more out of life if I can see it as a two-way process, or that if it's a way of mutual learning, and that things that I think I've already learned, maybe I need to go back and relearn them, or maybe I've lost touch with a certain type of learning that I had at one time in life. And so I do value what I learn from younger people as well. And maybe I'll relate one story that I like to think that I have changed the way I think about things. I have two boys. One of them is in his 20s, and we usually communicate by text message because we don't live together. And I got a text message one morning: Dad, do you have any regrets? Are there things that you wish you had not done, and you've done things differently in your life? And I first sent off a glib response like, no, I have no regrets. I live without regrets. And then I wrote a longer reply, which was that I find life is too hard to live with regrets, and that it's a miserable place to be thinking about what the past and what you did wrong, and the mistakes and the failures and the things. Oh, I wish I had done this differently. And so I choose not to live there, and I choose to believe that I did my best at that time, and that I can't look back now and judge myself at that time and say, oh, you should have done this, you should have been able to do this. I choose to believe that that's true, that I really did my best at that time. That was the best I was capable of. And to think that the best I can do now is to let go of regrets, to let go of living in the past and saying, oh, I wish I had done it this way instead of that way. And to let go of all that need to do that and just focus on the present moment right now. And so with my son, to think, instead of thinking about all the things that I didn't do well as a father in the past, to think, well, what can I do now? What is possible to do now? Because this is what I have now, is this opportunity. And if I can do that now, then do my best now, then that's the best way to live. And so I think that was something when I was younger that would have struck me as a little bit taking the easy way out, right? And saying that I don't look at the past and I don't live with regrets, and that would be too easy. But I think that's something I'm learning as I get older, is it's okay to be kind to yourself. It's okay to forgive yourself. It's okay to be compassionate to yourself. And maybe that's the way that you will do your best with the limited time that you have left.
Beautiful. Yeah, I always think of it, nowadays I think of it like we're on a wave that we can't stop. And we're always changing as everything else is. And you can only do the best you can do. I think it's a really nice perspective. It's always fresh. There's always possibility in that perspective. It's been an honor to talk with you, and I really appreciate you taking the time. So
Thank you.
much appreciation. All right, so I'm going to stop.